السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونصلي على مبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى أصحابه وآله ومن تبعه. Alhamdulillah, we are proud and welcome our Ustad and Sheikh abdullahibnkhamis, all the way from London. And it's a pleasure that we are hosting him for a topic that indeed everyone is in need of. So all of us are going to die one day, and we are in need of the ghusl, how to do it to our relatives, how to do it to ourselves, teach our relatives how to do it, and all those around us. So inshallah, today's schedule will be comprised of the ghusl for the deceased, what to do when someone dies immediately, how the janazah prayer is prayed, the etiquettes of going to the graveyard and how to bury a person, and that will be ended with a lecture about the journey to the hereafter, what happens in the grave, what happens when one dies, and foremost. Inshallah, the Sheikh will go through practical demonstrations of the ghusl and other parts of the janazah and the death of the person. Inshallah, there will be a break after the first hour, so a tea and coffee break, inshallah, for refreshments, and a second break before Asr to eat, and another break will be, inshallah, in the last hour. So, inshallah, you will be so comfortable throughout the whole seminar. All foods and all refreshments will be upstairs. Inshallah, if you go upstairs at those designated times, inshallah, it will be all organized and established when we walk up and down. So now I'll pass it on to the Sheikh, inshallah. I advise you take notes, inshallah. Allah forgives us for all our mistakes, and inshallah, Allah makes us a means of benefit for the community and everyone around us. Ameen.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في محكم تنزيله: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز، والله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. My dear respected brothers and all those listening First and foremost, I'd like to thank the ones that have put this event and this workshop together, because of course, كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحديث الصحيح, as the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم told us in an authentic hadith, الذي رواه الترمذي, that which is reported in Tirmidhi, من لم يشكر الناس لم يشكر الله حقا. The one that does not thank the people has not thanked Allah Azza wa Jal, the Almighty, properly. So may Allah reward all of those involved. Before we begin, brothers that are not those that have any sort of issues, come closer together, except for the uncles that have issues or brothers that have issues, come closer together. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to see the companions scattered, sitting in different places, he would tell them to fill the gaps, to not leave gaps for the shaitan. So we should be like one ummah, all together. So therefore, the closer you come together, then the more our hearts will be what? Closer to each other. As that which separates me and you and the person sitting next to you is nothing but an Islam, brothers. So we should all bear that in mind. Just like Prophet ﷺ used to, when he used to, before he used to pray salah, what did he used to say? استووا واعتدلوا ولا تختلفوا فتختلف قلوبكم. You know, come together and don't be separated, that which will cause your hearts to be separated. And my name is abdullahibnkhamis, and that is that which I prefer to be called. But the brother Jazakallah khair for his kind words. Now the topic, as we all know at hand, is something that subhanallah is very, very, very important. Before we begin, I'd just like to mention a hadith, or كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that which is reported. Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith, ما اجتمع قوم في بيت من بيوت الله عز وجل, that people or a group of people do not get together for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. In one of the narrations it mentions in the house of Allah. Other narrations it mentions in a place. يتلون كتاب الله ويتدارسونه فيما بينهم. That they get together. What's the reason they get together? In order for them to remember Allah Azza wa Jal, or to learn about His book, or to learn and seek knowledge and get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. إلا نزلت عليهم السكينة وحفتهم الرحمة. ونزلت عليهم الرحمة, that Allah Azza wa Jal's mercy descends upon them, and Allah blesses them with tranquility. وحفتهم الملائكة, that the angels, what does حفتهم? Does anyone who can tell me the meaning of that? وحفتهم الملائكة, so meaning that the angels will surround them. So right now, brothers, we're sitting in this gathering for the right reasons, inshallah. May Allah accept it from all of us. The angels are surrounding this gathering. Why? Because we have come here to seek knowledge. We have come here to remember Allah Azza wa Jal. وذكرهم الله في من عنده, أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And Allah remembers them in a gathering greater and better than the gathering that they have come to remember Allah Azza wa Jal. And another beautiful hadith, brothers. The reason we mention this because Allah says in the Quran, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Remind the believers, for verily the benefits and the reminders is that which benefits the believers. So when we hear these things, it should motivate us to try our best to carry on going and searching the places of gatherings of knowledge, because they are the most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, the masajid, the places where Allah's name is mentioned. And another hadith which is long, but I'll just give you the summarized version. The angels that have been appointed by Allah Azza wa Jal, specific ones, they come down and they descend and they go searching for what? Searching for the people that are sitting in gatherings of knowledge. And then they ascend to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah asks them, كَيْفَ وَجَدْتُمْ عِبَادِي? How did you find my servants? Of course, we know that Allah is what? Al-Alim, all-knowing. He already knows, but He's asking them, how did you find my servants? And then they would say that we found them remembering you, and we left them remembering you. And Allah says, do they know what I have prepared for them in terms of blessings and paradise? And then they would say, no, they do not know. And then Allah says, if they knew, what would they do? Allahu Akbar. Unzur ila rahmatillah Azza wa Jal. Look at the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, brothers. Just that in itself should be sufficient for all of us to strive, to seek knowledge, to get closer to Allah. Remember, brothers, that Allah is not in need of our actions. Whatever you put forth, and you put forth, and you put forth, and you put forth, and I put forth, Allah, it does not increase anything in Allah. It does not benefit Allah. Allah doesn't need our actions. But what is it? We're in need of Allah's mercy. So the more you fill your time with seeking knowledge, reading Quran, being in the gatherings of knowledge, then the more it will benefit you. And the more you will be closer to your Lord, Jalla Jalaluhu. What is the goal? Let me ask, who can put their hand up and tell me, what's the goal? What is our goal? What's your name? Huh? What's Hussein? What's the goal? What is your goal as a young Muslim boy? Think about it. What's your goal? What do you want to achieve afterwards? Huh? Barakallah feekum. May Allah Azza wa Jal make you from the inhabitants of paradise and bless you and your entire family and all the Muslims. The young boy, how old are you? He's 9 years old. May Allah bless him and his parents. Hussein said exactly the answer that I was looking for. Our goal, brothers, should be Jannah. But how do we attain it when we don't have enough knowledge of what Jannah is? Of the Lord that created Jannah. Jalla Jalal, Allah Azza wa Jal, the one that has blessed us. I see some uncles here, may Allah preserve you all and give you all good ending, and all of us that have grown white beards. Some of them maybe they've gone past the age of 50, 60. So therefore, we know that all of us is going to come a time when we're going to meet our Lord Jalla Jalaluhu. But the real question is, how much of our Lord do we know? How much have we given back for the blessings that He has bestowed upon us? Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with so many things, but how many things have we given back to Allah Azza wa Jal in terms of worshipping Him? As the Prophet ﷺ asked the companion, ما حق الله على العباد? What is the right that Allah has over His servants? حق الله على العباد أن يعبدوه ولا يشركوا به شيئا. That's the right that Allah has over us, that we worship Him alone and we don't associate partners. We don't commit shirk. Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't ask much from us, just to worship Him alone and to not commit shirk. And then what's the right? ما حق العباد على الله? If we do that and implement that, تحقيق التوحيد, we implement Tawheed, then what does Allah Azza wa Jal, what would Allah give us in return? أن لا يعذبهم. Or كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that He does not punish the one that implements Tawheed and stays away from shirk. So the topic at hand today, as the Prophet ﷺ used to say to his companions, and he used to advise them all the time, and he himself, and it was known and reported, brothers, look at how the companions were. Uthman ibn Affan, it was reported that many times the ayat of torment and punishment would be recited, and it would not make him cry or weep. But when he would go and visit the graves, what would happen to him? He would weep like a child, to the extent where it said his beard would be filled with tears, dripping down. So they would ask him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, ma yabki? What makes you cry? O Amir al-Mu'mineen, leader of the believers. And he would say that this is the beginning of the hereafter. That 6 foot inch, and inshallah when we do it today, we'll try and implement and give like a picture so we can all realize this here would be the beginning of each and every single one of us is hereafter. And there's only 2 paths in the hereafter, brothers. There's only 2 choices, there's only 2 ways, there's only 2 paths. There's not a middle one. إما عذاب or إما نعيم. إما تدخل الجنة or إما تدخل النار. Either you get filled with blessings and bounties, or you get punished upon that which you put forth. Or, meaning, in other words, you enter paradise or you enter the hellfire. So the choice is up to you as a person. What you put forth is that which you're going to see in your grave, which is the beginning stage of the akhirah, and also in the hereafter. As for that which we should do with regards to a person, and we would mention inshallah when a person death is approaching them, and the etiquettes and how we should be with regards to them, and then inshallah we'll actually enter the workshop, and then like the brother says, the rest of the day will continue being with us. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us, to bless this gathering, to make it sincere for His sake, because of course we know that nothing is of benefit unless it's sincere for Allah's sake. So I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make it sincere, that which we put forth today, and all those that are involved in that which is behind the scenes, those are the ones that are doing more than the person that's actually delivering the lecture or the reminder. So may Allah reward them, make it sincere, make it testify for us, and make it a means of this gathering that they were here today, for all of us to meet in Jannah. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us and grant us all Jannah al-Firdaus al-A'la, and to make us all reunite in Jannah and discuss about this day. Allahumma ameen. So with regards to when someone is sick, what should be the first thing that the person that is related to that person that is sick or knows them, what should they do? It's a question, Ikhwan, it's a question. Before that, if you know someone is sick, what should you do? Visit them. حق المسلم على المسلم كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, from the rights of a Muslim to another Muslim, that you visit them. So if you didn't know this, then write it down and memorize it, implement it. And if you did know this, then of course, alhamdulillah, it's a reminder. If you know someone is sick, then the first thing you should do, that you should visit them. Who can tell me what's the benefit of visiting someone that is sick? What are from the benefits or the fruits of visiting someone that is sick? Say that again. Barakallahu fik. Anything else? Barakallahu fikum. The angels also ask you to what? To be forgiven, because of course you know when you make a dua and what have you. The next thing I was going to mention is making dua for them. If you can't visit them, at the very least make dua for them. At the very least you make dua for them. Okay? Let's say you've heard someone is sick, make dua. It's not a must for you to be related to them. It's not a must for it to be someone from your household in order for you to make dua for them. A benefit I'll give you all that I remember the Mashaykh mentioning. I remember Shaykh Abdul Razak, he mentioned this benefit. And it's something that will benefit all of you if you did not know. When you make dua, many of us were selfish. We make dua for ourselves or maybe just our family members. But did you know that if you make dua and you ask Allah, for example, the dua, Allahumma khfir al-muslimina wal-muslimat, al-ahya' minhum wal-amwat, Allahumma shfi mardana wa marda al-muslimin. If you make dua for those that are alive and those that have passed away, the deceased, for Allah to forgive them, then that comes back to you. Each and every single Muslim you make dua for, which is Jami' al-Muslimin, all the Muslims, you will also be forgiven. So how much more chances do you need for you to get your sins being forgiven? SubhanAllah. Just making simple dua, just uttering from your tongue. You don't know someone is sick, make dua for the whole ummah, for Allah Azza wa Jalla to cure them. Because then that dua is going to be written back to you as well, inshallah. So these are from the things that we should try our most best to do. If someone is sick, you should visit them. You should make dua for them. Anything else? That's from supplicating, making dua. Anything else? You should also tell them to have good thoughts about Allah Azza wa Jalla. So if you're in their presence, or you can text them or reach out to them, tell them to have good thoughts about Allah Azza wa Jalla. You should also tell them to be patient. The Prophet ﷺ says to us in authentic hadith, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. It's amazing the hal and the state of a Muslim. إِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ خَيْرٌ. All of his affairs are all good. وَذَلِكَ لَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. And that is not for anyone except for a believer. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرًّا. If he's afflicted with a calamity or hardship, صَبْرٌ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. He's patient. And that is better for him. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرًّا. What does he do? If he has been gifted or blessed with something that is good, a blessing, then he is thankful and he shows gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And this should be something that you remind the person that's going through that trial. For example, your siblings have been afflicted with a terminal illness, that which is common today, cancer, for example. They have cancer. Remind them that, wallahi, my dear brother, my dear sister, grandmother, aunt, friend, uncle, father, son, wherever it may be, daughter, that which is upon you now, that which you've been afflicted, is nothing but khair for you. Because either two things, brothers. Either Allah Azza wa Jal wants to forgive them of their sins, and their actions are not enough. Or Allah Azza wa Jal wants them to reach a position in that which they have asked for in Jannah, and their actions that they've put forth is not enough. So that's why Prophet says, what does he say in the hadith? عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. It's amazing the state of a Muslim. Of course, as human beings, we have emotions. So at the time, maybe I'm saying this now, but I would need for all of you, if I was afflicted, to remind me. Because at the time when I'm going through that specific trial, it may be difficult for me as a person, human being, to implement that. Because knowing something is one thing, implementing it is harder, and it's a different thing. So that's why we should do what? Stick to that which Allah Azza wa Jalla has told us and the Messenger. Allah says, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So if I'm in that position, I may know the hadith, for example, or another brother or sister may know that hadith, that this is all good and it's a calamity and it's a test and a trial, but you need to remind them, because the reminders benefit the believers. So that's something you should do as well. Remind them that that which they're going through is good for them. And what does Allah say in the Quran? فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكَ. Okay, you may dislike something and it's good for you, and you may like something and it's what? Bad for you. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows and you do not know. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. We have been created weak, نستعجل. We hasten to say things and to think things as well. So when they've been afflicted with something, that's when you as a brother or a sister needs to be present to remind them constantly. Akhi, isbir. Brother, be patient. Sister, be patient. You don't know what's going to await for you. Maybe Allah has given this to you as a blessing in disguise to save you from something that you may have done or something that may occur. So all of these things are important because at times we get weak. Shaitan may come to that person, and then what's going to happen? When shaitan comes to that person and they're weak, in terms of physically, they're weak. They're not able to make dua as they would do because they're not healthy. And that happens to many of us. When we're weak, we forget. And then we start to think bad of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Then we say, why me? I prayed yesterday. Why me? I've done this. Why me? Why me? Why this? Always have husnul dhan. So remind them in that moment to have good thoughts of Allah Azza wa Jalla. That is very, very important. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدًا. Isn't Allah sufficient for His servants? So remind them to have patience at that moment of time. What else? Can anybody think of anything else? So we've mentioned you should visit them. You should make dua for them. You should remind them to say good things. Another thing as well is to aid them in anything they need. For example, if you give them something from natural remedies, if it's medication, it's going to aid them after after the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. So you aid them with that which they need. Another thing as well that you should do, if they're in a terminal state, meaning that they can't physically provide for their own family members, then you should also, if you're able to, help them as well in terms of looking after their family members. Maybe they can't move, maybe they have to be in hospital until they meet Allah Azza wa Jal. So these are from the things that benefits a believer. They benefit a believer when you visit the Muslim. And of course we know that من كرب عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا, okay, then Allah Azza wa Jal, the hadith mentions when the Prophet ﷺ says that whoever takes off and alleviates a difficulty, a calamity from a believer, then Allah will take off that difficulty from him on the day of judgment. Allahu Akbar. Wallahu fi awni al-abd ma kana al-abd fi awni akhi. Allah Azza wa Jal will constantly help the believer. So as long as the believer helps his brother. Another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said to us, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. Okay, none of you is a true believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. So the opposite of this, brothers, is that if you love for yourself to have good health, then when you see your brother not having good health, you should also hate to see him in this state, which will cause you to help him and to aid him. To help him and to aid him. This is in terms of if a person has reached at the stage where they are ill and they're going through difficulty. Now, of course, we know with regards to many of us, when we go through difficulties, one thing that is important, and I do say this because specifically here in the West, is known with regards to taking medication. No one is saying taking medication you shouldn't do, or it's haram or what have you, but many of us, we forget. Allah huwa shafi. Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that cures, brothers. The medication is a means, but many of us, because we've been born and raised in this country, or we've been used to the whole system of taking medication, we start to believe that that's our cure, that medication, that tablet is going to cure us. Forgetting, and this is also means that you have a deficiency in your tawheed, in your belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. Because the medication is not curing you, it's a means. So therefore remember and know that that which is the only one that's going to take away that specific illness is the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. So always bear that in mind as well. The medication is just a means. It's just a means. Now, Ikhwani, with regards to the person, they are dying. Okay, let's fast forward to the section of the person is actually on their deathbed. So they're dying in their last stages. Just before we get to that, the last thing I'll mention is try to also remind that person that knows that they're about to die, or they are able to physically do something in terms of actions, but they're dying, to try their best to put forth that which they can. because that's also a blessing in disguise for you to actually know that you've only got a short period of time due to your illness, not to the ilm al-ghayb, to the unknown knowledge, but generally due to your time that you've been given. Okay, they say you've got approximately 6 months or a year, what have you, meaning you're in a critical condition. Try to remind that person that they should put forth whatever they can with regards to good deeds. We've gotten to the stage where they are on their deathbed. What should be from the things that we should do? Does anyone know? Barakallahu feekum. The person is about to die, or they're approaching death. If they have anything and you're close to them, family member or relative or friend, then they should try their best to settle that which they have with regards to debts. Okay, that's very, very important, because the Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith that the one that has something and has the intention to pay off and then death takes them, then that is something. Okay, because the Prophet ﷺ, when he explains the one that has debts, he puts them into two categories. It's main. The one that has the intention, then inshallah they will be forgiven. And the one that does not have the intention, then on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the hadith where Prophet ﷺ says, Atadri man al-muflis? He asks the companions, do you know who's the bankrupt one? And they said, the one that doesn't have any money, dinar wala dirham. The hadith, the long one. And he says, no, the muflis is the one, ظلم هذا وشتم هذا وأخذ مال هذا إلى آخر الحديث, until the end. Meaning the one that has oppressed, the one that has taken money wrongly, the one that has backbited and done so many things. So from the things that one should do when they're approaching death is settle the debts. That's one thing. Pay off the debts. If they're not able to, then the family members should do so. Another thing that they should do as well is to ask for forgiveness. If they've oppressed someone and they know they've oppressed someone, they should either reach out. And the ulama, they explain this, brothers, because many times people ask questions, what if I've oppressed someone so many times and I fear that if I reach out to them and say to them I've oppressed them, it's going to cause more harm, more friction between me and them. The ulama, they mentioned if this is the case, then you should mention them in good as you've mentioned them in bad. Okay, does that make sense? Is that clear? That you should mention them in good just the same way you mentioned them in bad. And inshallah, this will be a means of you taking that action that you've tried to settle that disagreement. Okay, but if you can go to them and it's not going to cause harm, then ask for forgiveness. Okay, so I do ask each and every one of you, if I've oppressed you in any way, to forgive me. But there's something important, ikhwani wallah. It's very, very important. It's actually serious. Many of us forget. We've oppressed so many people and we just carry on living life as if nothing would happen. Inna Allah la yuzlimu ahada. Allah Azza wa Jalla does not oppress anyone. As the authentic hadith that's mentioned in Arba'in al-Nawawi, where hadith Qudsi. So the words of Allah Azza wa Jalla, hadith Qudsi, where Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, إِنِّي قَدْ حَرَّمْتُ الظُّلْمَ عَلَى نَفْسِي وَجَعَلْتَهُ بَيْنَكُمْ حَرَامٌ فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. Or كما قال, that I have made oppression haram upon myself. And also amongst you as well, oppression is haram. It's not allowed. So do not oppress one another. Okay? الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة ترى يا إخواني. الظلم ظلمات on the day of judgment. Meaning, what does it mean, الظلم ظلمات? Meaning the one that has oppressed on the day of judgment, it will not be left. It won't be left. Brothers, we have to bear this in mind and understand. Many of us, we live this day and age today because we're comfortable. We've got a house, we've got a roof over our head, we've got family, we've got wealth, we've got cars, we go on holiday and we've oppressed so many people. And we just think we're going to get away with it. Wallahi, wa billahi, wa tallahi, you won't get away with a single thing that you did to someone. So if you've oppressed someone, settle it today. We're in the month of Sha'ban, approaching Ramadan. Settle it if you can. If you know that you can't settle it, as I've mentioned, then mention them in good. Mention them in good. The one that you have oppressed. Just because they're lesser than you in power, in status, in wealth, in position, it does not give you. We constantly forget. So that's also from the things that you should try and do. Another thing as well, but of course, the brothers mentioned that someone else would come and cover the topic with regards to the wills and stuff like that, inheritance. But you should also do wasiyah. This is something that's important. If you have children specifically, if you can do a wasiyah, what does that mean in English? Wasiyah? It's a will, exactly. So if you can do wasiyah, if you can do the will to your family members, even if you don't own anything, but try and advise them. If you know death is approaching you, even beforehand, try and live constantly as if you're doing a will. What do I mean by that? I don't mean the bid'ah, no. I mean, when you're alive with your family members, try and raise that family upon Islam and teach them certain things. So when you're gone, they know that they should also carry on doing righteous good deeds. You know what's very important, Ikhwani? Many of us, we forget as well. Children that are young, it's like a sponge. It soaks in everything. التعليم في الصغر كالنقش على الحجر. When you teach a child when they're young good things, they absorb it in and it sinks in. And then it will be that specific investment you made in them when they're young that will benefit you when you enter your grave if you die before them. Why? Because they'll make dua for you, inshallah. So also teach them Islam. We're not saying forget and don't teach them secular studies and education and what have you, because of course it's important to be educated and to learn. But the number one thing that you should teach your children is not materialistic things. It's not just to have the main thing. Number one is education, 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 and then Islam. As Prophet ﷺ, when he used to make dua, لا تجعل الدنيا اللهم لا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا. Oh Allah, do not make this worldly life, this dunya, my main thing, the most important thing that I have, that I dedicate myself to. It should be the akhirah, ikhwan. That's our real home, our real abode, is the akhirah, the hereafter. So from these things that we've mentioned, you should do them. The clearing of the debts, anyone that you've oppressed, anything that you need to settle off, that you should all do this before you approach death and before you're taken away, before your soul is taken away. Advise your family members as well. From the things as well, advise your family members, specifically the women folk, with regards to doing innovation that will harm you as a person being deceased. To not wail, to not leave flowers. And we're going to touch on this when we actually do the workshop. But these are from the things you should advise them. I do not need anyone to come from you. If you truly love me, or my wife, daughter, and what have you, grandmother, mother, don't wail, don't come and start crying on my grave. Don't sit on my grave. Don't leave flowers on my grave. All of that, ikhwan, is not going to benefit them. What's flowers going to do to them or for them when they're 6 foot under? Don't say, it's a tradition, it's culture. Culture is not what is going to benefit you in the grave or the deceased. But rather what's going to benefit them is the actions that they put forth. So put aside your culture. And I say this because many of us Muslims today, we put culture first and then Islam. That's wrong. It should be Islam first. We're not saying don't love your culture, don't respect it. No, of course, one should be wise. You should love your culture. You should respect it, no doubt, as long as it does not go against Islam, which is the asas, the foundation. That should be first. Always put Islam first, even if it's something that you don't like or you're not comfortable with. But rather, it's because you're doing it for Allah Azza wa Jalla. If they have reached the stage when they are actually on their deathbed and they're dying, then from the things that you should do, and write this down, Ikhwani, please, that the Prophet ﷺ says, لَقِنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ, which means that you should help them and remind them and tell them to say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Tell them, La ilaha, the kalima of Tawheed. This should be something that you should always tell. If Allah has blessed you, and I say a blessing because if you now know that this is my family member or my friend and they're a Muslim, even if they're not Muslim, someone is dying on your arms, on your palms, they're dying and they're not a Muslim, give them da'wah there and then. You can be the means of them entering paradise after the fadl of Allah Azza wa Jal and the bounty of Allah Azza wa Jal. You can be the means of them entering paradise. Tell them about Islam. How many times we hear on the internet, we hear stories that a person was on their deathbed, someone came and gave them da'wah, spoke to them about Allah, do you believe in one Lord and what have you, gave them the shahada, and that was their last word. بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ. They will enter paradise. If La ilaha illallah was their last word and they accepted Islam, then we know Al-Islam يَجُبُّ مَا قَبْلَهُ. Islam annihilates and takes away everything that preceded it, everything that came before it. So if someone lived a life 60 years, 50 years upon disbelief, they weren't Muslim, they did all the bad things, and they accepted Islam and died, they'll enter paradise. And we all know, of course, the story of the Sahabi, the companion, that he was from those that accepted Islam, and then he entered the battlefield, and then he fought in battle, and he was shaheed, and he, of course, accepted Islam, and he died as a martyr. And he didn't pray a single salah, didn't make a single rak'ah. He entered Islam. Prophet ﷺ said to the companions who were fil Jannah that he is in heaven, he's in paradise. So it doesn't necessitate for the person to be a Muslim for you to give them da'wah, tell them to say La ilaha illallah, meaning give them da'wah from the Muslim. If they're Muslim, then try and help them and motivate them to say La ilaha illallah. To say La ilaha illallah. That's from the things. Second one is, if someone is at that stage where they have a critical condition, many times you see them give up in belief of Allah Azza wa Jal. So they start to wish for death. And this is la yajuz in Islam. This is not allowed in the state of Islam. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith, La tatamanna al-maut. Do not wish for death. One should not wish for death. Okay, so this is also something, Ikhwani, as well. Please write this down and try and remember it. When someone is approaching death and you see them and they're telling you that they want to die, it's too much pain, I can't take it, remind them, do not wish for death. Do not wish for death, but rather, Prophet ﷺ, look at how merciful he was. As Allah mentions in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We did not send him down except as a mercy to mankind. He gave a solution for the one that maybe is in that stage where they can't take it. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? The Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, فَإِنْ كَانَ لَا بُدَّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. Okay, that if it's something that one cannot take with regards to, that they're at that stage where they're going through difficulty and it's too much for them, then what should they do? They should say, فَإِنْ كَانَ الْمَوْتَ خَيْرًا لِي. And inshallah, I'm going to get you all the actual meaning, inshallah, in translation. Because many times, you see a lot of times that the person that is on their deathbed, they wish for their soul to be taken. And at the same time, for them wishing that is something that is not good. The Prophet ﷺ says, La tamanna al-maut. Do not wish for death. And one of his uncles at the time, as is mentioned in the long hadith, that he told him this in reply when it was too much for him. And he says, فَإِنْ كَانَ لَا بُدَّ فَاعِلًا. That if it's something that you can't do anything else but this, meaning wishing for death, which you shouldn't do, فَلْيَقُلْ اللَّهُمَّ أَحْيِنِي مَا كَانَتِ الْحَيَاةُ خَيْرٌ لِي. Oh Allah, keep me alive, so as long as me staying alive is good for me. Okay? وَتَوَفَّنِي, and grant me death إِذَا كَانَتُ الْوَفَاةُ خَيْرٌ لِي. If death is better for me. And this hadith is authentic. So that should be something you should tell the person that is at that stage. Because of course everyone has different taqa, they have different capabilities and being able to, withstand pain and what have you. But you should tell them not to wish for death, but rather to say this. So the first thing is, you should make them say La ilaha illallah. Because of the authentic hadith, that if one says this and dies upon this, then inshallah they'll enter Jannah. Yes, brother.
What if the comatose not in the sense?
I can't hear.
What if they're comatose?
Or what if they're in the coma? Of course, if someone is in a coma, then they're not able to speak, obviously. But as long as you say it to them, and usually, not all the time, it depends on the scenarios, they can hear you, right? At times, they can hear you. So if that's the case and they can hear you, then just at least say it to them. So then, inshallah, hopefully, their affairs with Allah Azza wa Jal. Their affairs with Allah Azza wa Jal. But also, brothers, with regards to someone that's not in the state where they're able to say like the brother, then of course, Allah Azza wa Jal, we're not saying it's a must for you to say La ilaha illallah before you die, and that's the only means of entering Jannah. But it's good if they are able to say it. So if they can't, then at least tell them to say it. Even if they're not able to actually utter it. Even if they're not able to utter it. So we've mentioned all of that which they need to pay off. We've mentioned with regards to them needing to say La ilaha illallah if they can, and to not wish for death. If they have actually died, okay, then death has come and approached them and they're dead, then it's from the Sunnah to تغميض العينين, meaning to cover their eyes. Okay, to not keep their eyes open when they have died. You should cover their eyes. Okay, and these are from the things, maybe there's some that I've missed out, but these are from the things that I was able to gather with regards to just before actually, getting into the part of doing the actual acts of washing the deceased and what have you. But these are from the things. And of course, we know, brothers, something that we should all remember. And I say this point, I'm going to tell you something that happened, a story, and it's only for you to realize. Brothers, anyone that has lived a life, it doesn't have to be 20, 50 years, it could just be 20 years. The way you live your life is the way you're going to end your life. The way you live your life is the way you're going to end your life. So you should always ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give you husnul khatimah. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And if you hear the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's name, you should say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he used to ask Allah the Almighty, and he was the one that was the best of mankind. His previous sins and his sins to come were forgiven. The best of mankind. Fil ardi was sama, afdal khalq. In the heavens and the earth. He used to say, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub. Oh Allah, twister and turner of the hearts. Thabbit qalbi ala deenik. Keep my heart steadfast and firm upon your religion. And he was the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sahaba Aslikhwan, we're living in 2023. So this is 2023, 1444 years ago, taqreeban roughly. Look at how much fitna is around us. So we're in dire need of saying it. We should be saying it constantly. And he used to always ask Allah to give him a good ending. And he was the Prophet. So we should always be constantly from those that ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us a good ending. And we should be from those that ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make our ending easy and to make our death easy and to give us good ending and to also make our affairs in the barzakh inside the grave easy as well. We shouldn't have this kibr, this pride in our hearts where we don't ask Allah, we don't make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. Because rather we should know that Allah Azza wa Jal loves the believers that cry upon Him and make dua to Him. As Allah mentions in the Quran, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If they ask you about me, then tell them I'm close. And I respond and answer the supplications of the supplicator that has called unto me. So we should always make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. But if you've lived a life, for all those listening, if you've lived a life of rebelliousness, of sins, and you've engrossed in that, sin after sin, then also don't be from those that lets the shaitan make you deviate from the truth, where you don't ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive you because you think you've done too much. Brothers, we should know, none of us here, there's no difference between me and you and the person in prison and the person that has killed 1 million people. What's the difference? The Prophet ﷺ says to us in authentic hadith, كل بني آدم خطاء. Each and every single son of Adam is a sinner, has deficiencies. وخير الخطائين التوابون. And the best of those sinners and those that commit sin and those that do wrong are the ones that repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in another authentic hadith, كلكم تخطئون بالليل والنهار. Each and every single one of you commit sins day and night. And I am the one that forgives the one that asks me. فاستغفروني أغفر لكم. And I forgive you. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in the Quran, and this is also something that we should always try and remember as well. قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا. To all those sinners, and we're all sinners, but those that think that their sin is too much, Allah is telling you, say to them, the ones that have transgressed upon themselves, in what way? By committing sins. لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Do not despair from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Don't think that your sin is too much for Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive you. إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. Allah Azza wa Jal forgives all sins. إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. He's all forgiving. So always bear that in mind, brothers. Always bear that in mind. Remind people that are weak. Many people that get weak and commit sins, they indulge more in sin because they think that they are too bad or their sin is too great for them to be forgiven. But that's wrong. If you've committed sin, there's still a chance for you. Repent to Allah Azza wa Jal before it's too late. Because then when your soul is taken and the day of judgment comes, then it's going to be too late. Inshallah, we'll begin bi'idhnillah. I don't know, should we begin now? Okay. What time is Salat al-Asr? Yeah, I think we should begin now, inshallah, with regards to actually the person has died, and inshallah we'll do the practical steps of how to actually go about washing the deceased and what you need to do on the ahkam and the sunnah, inshallah. So who's going to volunteer for me? Is it going to be Adam? Huh?
A quick question before that. What's the position of using morphine as a painkiller and relieving pain of a person who's passing away?
Okay, to be honest, I'm not a doctor, that's not my field, and I stay in my lane. But generally speaking, Allah knows best with regards to the hukm of the Allahu A'lam. But of course, we know that certain things, like for example, cancer, there's been research about, taking certain things and it helps. But that's something that one should, ask a scholar with regards to actually taking something in terms of is it allowed or is it not allowed. Allah knows best.
There's been articles published based on this for palliative care for people who die, especially with infection. And it has been agreed upon that if somebody is bleeding out, and that's not being on the top line, if they need it. I think published based on consultation with
Barakallahu.
What about reciting the Quran? Any specific surah that you should recite by the bedside of the one who died?
But what's the reason behind it?
Just like you're constantly reminding him to say the kalima. So is there any reason to recite any specific surah which would help him for him his death to be easier? Is there any?
In terms of that which has been reported from the Sunnah, giving you the best example of Prophet ﷺ when he was in his deathbed, there isn't a hadith that I can recall at this time that from his wife, who was Aisha radiallahu, because of course we know that he died in Aisha radiallahu anha's sadr, chest, and there was no hadith to mention that they recited Quran on him or anything of the sort. But of course, I know what you mean in terms of trying to remind them, but we stick to the Quran and Sunnah. Prophet ﷺ says, لَقِّنُوا مَوْتَاكُمْ. Tell them to say La ilaha illallah. That has been authentically reported to remind them of saying La ilaha illallah. Okay, but obviously maybe before and what have you, Allah knows best, but the sunnah is that you say to them, say La ilaha illallah, say La ilaha illallah, laqinu mawtakum. And of course, when you remind them of this, you're reminding them of the main thing that enters someone into Islam, which is that they believe and testify there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah in truth, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final slave, final messenger and servant. So that's something that has been reported. So the brother just said, inshallah, we'll have a 5-minute break for water and what have you, then we'll start the evening. So, and also just to add as well to your question, it's something that we have to always bear in mind that we should try our best to, in Islam, there's two things, okay? In terms of doing actions that is related to worship, okay, al-asl fil ashya, in terms of fil ibadah, is that it's haram. Anything that you put forth with regards to action, it's haram. What does that mean? Meaning you're not allowed to do an action in terms of worship illa idha wajadta ad-dalil, except if you find the proof for it. That's in terms of, let's say now I want to pray a certain way, I want to fast, I want to do something. I am not allowed to do any action unless I know that it's authentic, meaning the Prophet ﷺ did it. Because he was sent as our messenger, he is our role model, so we should copy him in terms of his worship. And of course, the opposite in terms of normal things like drinking, eating, and doing stuff, traveling, and asl fil ashya al-hil. That anything with regards to now I want to drink something, I want to do something, that the origin of things is that it is halal. Does that make sense? So this is the two things. In terms of traveling and what have you, you're not going to say, is it allowed for me to travel to this place? Because it's generally speaking, it is halal unless you know something there is haram. For example, this drink, I see it and perceive it to be water, for example. So therefore, I'm going to say Bismillah and drink it. Unless I know or someone has told me that it's alcohol, then of course I'm not going to drink it. But the asl of things in the worldly life is that it's halal. In terms of worship, I'm going to pray salah. I shouldn't just pray the way my grandfather taught me, or the way I've been taught, or the way I should, the way I think is correct, unless I've got proof for it. Unless I have proof for it. Yeah, all of these stuff. Yeah, see, if you read Surah Hameen, you're going to get given rizq. If you read Surah Al-Rahman, Allah will give you rahmah. There's so many of these things that there's no proof for them at all whatsoever. So we should try our utmost best to stick to the Quran and Sunnah. Why? It's not because I'm saying it, Abdullah is saying it, because Prophet told us, إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ أَمْرَيْنِ لَن تَضِلَّ إِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهُمَا كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that I have left you two things that if you hold tight on them and you cling to them firm, then you won't be misguided, you won't be led astray. Kitabullah wa sunnati. The book of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Quran, and my Sunnah. These are the two things that we should always try our most best to stick towards. For those that need a 5-minute breaks, for those that don't want to, I don't know. Okay, yeah, the brother's saying water's at the back for those that need it, inshallah. We'll just take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll resume here.
Brothers, if you don't mind, I'll just make this first in front so we can, inshallah, we'll start with demonstration as well. We'll be doing that from here, so you can come on with. You can come on the side as well, inshallah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So now, inshallah, we're going to just demonstrate bi'idhnillahi ta'ala with regards to how to actually wash the deceased, what happens. Huh? volunteer Brother Iman, may Allah reward him. Okay, just take it to the end. Yes, sir. Sorry, I don't want to be demonstrating. So generally speaking, brothers, with regards to the deceased, the first thing that we should know is that in terms of that which is important is to honor and respect the deceased. Yes, sir.
Sorry, can we ask question while the process is going, or we wait till after the session?
I think it's best if you can note it down so that I don't deviate from the actual step-by-step guide, so it's easier for those watching, and then the questions will be at the end, inshallah. So of course we know that in the olden times there weren't any sort of technologies and what have you to tell that someone is dead. So they will know with regards to as which is known that, for example, the body being cold, okay, maybe the nose actually being a bit tilted to the side, the eyes. So there are certain things that they will know that the deceased person is dead. Of course, now we have ajizah, we have technology and what have you, that to tell that body is dead, the person is actually dead. So we mentioned earlier that one of the things that one should do is, if someone is dead, to cover their eyes. Okay? And you cover their eyes. And that is something that is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? And we know that Prophet Siddiq, when he entered the room and the Prophet ﷺ was there, and he saw that it was the Prophet ﷺ, he entered the room and then he covered his eyes, and also that which is allowed, we're going to go into it as well, other things as well. We'll just stop there. So, what we're going to be discussing here is someone that has died a natural death. Okay? A natural death. Because of course we know that some people don't die a natural death. And we're not going to discuss that. We're going to discuss someone that has died a natural death. But of course we know that, let's say for example, their death has left them injuries. On certain body parts they have injuries, then, and we know that water will affect their body, then that which the ulama say is that you should do tayammum. You should do tayammum. If their body will be harmed with that water. But what we're discussing today is with using water. So let's say, for example, they have died a natural death. That's what we're going to discuss. Also, if someone has died due to a car crash and they have body parts, so their limbs are in pieces, and of course as well, that which is able, as the Prophet says, fear Allah Azza wa Jal as much as you can. You wash that which you're able to wash. Okay? You wash that which you're able to wash. So let's say we have entered the place where we're washing them. Okay? The first thing that you should do is you cover them. Okay? You cover them. Now, when I say cover, for a man, of course, we know where's the part of awrah for the man? Surra ila al-rukbah. Okay? So from the belly button to the knees, below the knees. So the belly button is here. You cover them until the knees. Okay? That's what you should do. Okay? You cover them from the belly button to the knees. Now, as for them, if it's a woman, we know that if it's a woman, that exists from the chest, upper chest, until also lower than the knees, okay? And this is something that I wanted to remind all of you that with regards to the awrah of the Muslim when they're alive, it's the same thing of the awrah of them when they're dead. As the Prophet ﷺ says in Hadith, من غسل وكفن وستر غفر له 40 كبيرة. Okay, whoever washes, okay, the deceased and puts them into their kafan and puts them into their grave and what have you, okay, and this makes all of that which they've seen and what have you, does not conceal it to anyone. They don't disclose it to anyone else. They conceal it. Then they will be forgiven 40 heavy things. Okay, meaning it's something that you should know. ستر العورة للميت كمثل ستر العورة للحي. Okay, ستر العورة, covering the aura, the body parts. That is awrah as a Muslim, as they are when they are walking the streets, they have covered themselves. It should be the same respect, and you should honor the Muslim, male or female, when they have died and passed away. Okay? That's something that's very important because many Muslims are heedless of this point. And when it comes to them washing, especially back home and what have you, or even here in the West, we do not take this matter important, of high importance. It's something that's very, very crucial and important. That when the person is deceased, you also make sure that you protect their honor. Just because they're dead, it doesn't mean that you don't respect them. Okay? Now, with regards to that which you should do is you should try your best, and of course we don't have the thing, we don't need to do it. I'm going to give you all an example that you've covered them, okay? So we've covered the brother, we've covered the brother, man, and of course we should, underneath, once again, to respect and have the dignity of the brother and honor him, you should use something from the scissors that cuts and take off their clothes. If you need to cut, you take it off. If you need to take it off, you have another brother helping, okay? And we take off the brother's clothes and with this clothing on top to cover his aura. Even if we're related, same thing, we need to cover the aura. Okay, so you take off their clothing. So you remove it, okay? And if you need someone who can hold it like this, another person holds the other end, okay? And then you remove without looking. Okay, you remove without looking. Then afterwards, of course, you get water. Okay, so you get water. And some places what they use a hose pipe. Okay, they use a hose pipe in order to wash the deceased. I'll have the brother like this. Okay, sometimes the brother. So if the brother, for example, is deceased, okay, and he has certain food left within him, one thing that you should do, you should help remove that by pressing down, okay, to remove any sort of extracts and anything that's left from the food that was in the brother or the sister that's deceased, okay? After you've done that, all of this as well is in order to help the deceased, because many of us, we think that when the person is deceased and they have passed away, that it's not important, the deceased, we can treat them as we want, handle them as we know. It's not. This was not from the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ was that they would respect the one that is deceased. They would respect the one that is deceased. Another thing that's very important, I actually don't have it on me, is that the person washing should be wearing gloves. The person washing should be wearing gloves as well. Okay, they should be wearing gloves. Now, when it comes to before we actually start washing the deceased, the ulama, they differ with regards to this specific point, but that which is allowed to be permissible for those that have pushed the arms, I'm telling you now, it's allowed and permissible, that you remove from the deceased the hairs on the armpits, okay, and you take off or you straighten the mustache. If it's growing too much, you straighten it and take it from the mustache. Of course, you don't have to be, it's not from the sunnah. Okay, but you lessen the mustache, you take off hairs from the armpits, and you cut their nails. As for their private hairs, then you don't take anything and you don't touch this. Okay? Why? The Prophet says in hadith, "Man mata ala hal yub'ath alayhi." The one that dies upon that state will be resurrected like that. Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay? But it's allowed for you to remove the nails, the fingernails and toenails, okay? And from the mustache, you fix it and straighten it, and from the armpits. Okay? As for the private area, brothers, once again, I'm saying it again, reiterating, you do not touch the private areas, male or female. Okay? You do all of this with wearing gloves. You do all of this with wearing gloves in terms of washing them and touching them. So after one has done this, they removed from the armpits, they removed from the toenails and what have you, the mustache. Then the next step will be washing them. Will be washing the deceased. Everyone can see, right? So the first step of washing is you would get water and you would make wudu for the deceased. You would make wudu for the deceased. Of course, this is the brother's right hand. We'll start with washing his arms. just like a person makes wudu 3 times. So you get the water and wash their hands 3 times. This is the sunnah. The sunnah is to make literally the way you do wudu when you're alive will be the exact same way that you wash the deceased, by washing their hands 3 times. So you wash their hands 3 times, okay? And how do you wash their hands, brothers? The Prophet says to us that we should wash our hands, of course, from here, okay, from here, all the way up to the tip of the fingernails, and in between as well, and also the knuckles, because there's certain bacteria there's research that's been found, bacteria that touches these parts of the knuckles. So you wash their hands thoroughly 3 times. After washing his hand, what's next? You wash the mouth. Now with this part, brothers, we're going to demonstrate. So let's say, for example, can I get volunteers? Can I get volunteers to help me just hold it there? I think maybe it's better for practicality if we can actually maybe put something underneath in case we get water. Yeah, please. For example, we wash his hands. So we wash his hands, okay, 3 times, okay, brothers? The same way you make wudu when you're alive. It's the way you do it for the deceased. So you wash it 3 times. Once that's done, then afterwards I'll enter water into his mouth, okay? And then I would circulate my finger in his mouth and take him, of course, take it out as well slowly. Okay? I'll do this slowly. The intent is not to pour water and gush water in his mouth. No, it's just to wash the inside of his mouth. Okay? Just wash the inside of his mouth. And what's best as well, the intent for this, by the way, the scholars they say with regards to putting cotton inside, it's usually supposed to be like small cotton. It's not the whole lot as well with it, but just something to cover his nose. Reason being is that when you're washing him, to not get any water inside. So when we finish washing him and carrying him, maybe blood will come out or something will come out of his nose, which will be something off-putting. Okay, because also when a Muslim person is being washed and what have you, you want to also help keep that nice smell until you enter him into his grave. There's a sense of respect for us, and wallahi, this is from the blessings of the religion of Islam. There's no other religion that teaches that which we have been taught by our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you put the cotton inside his nose like that, just to stop any sort of excess water reaching his nose. So we wash his hand 3 times, and then we put water in his mouth, okay? And of course, when you put water in his mouth, so we put some in his mouth, along his nose, and taking it out. Okay, in his mouth and his nose and taking it out. Okay, 3 times. Done the hands 3 times, the nose and the mouth 3 times. And then afterwards we wash the face. Okay? Obviously it would be better, but because the angle I'm at to use my right hand, I'm just using my right hand now just to support it. So I'll wash his face, and where do we wash the face from? From the manabit al-sha'r, which starts from here. So where your hair starts to grow from, okay, which is your chin, okay? وَمِنْ أُذْنِهِ إِلَى أُذْنٍ, okay, عَرْضًا, okay? So from one end of the ear to the other, in terms of width-wise. So from the line prick where your head starts from, all the way around. That's the place where you're supposed to make wudu. And if he has a beard, obviously, as well, you can just put a small one like this, so a big one just around. So then I can put some waters in like that. 3 times. We do this obviously 3 times, okay? And then afterwards, I'll do his right hand. So once again, from the fingertips down to his elbow, okay? إلى المرافق, as Allah mentions in the Quran, so tonight, إلى المرافق, okay? We do this 3 times, okay? In between as well. And then we'll do his hands as well 3 times, okay? Same thing as well, just the same way you make wudu. Same exact way you make wudu 3 times. Okay, so we've done the hands 3 times up until there. We're just repeating just for those that maybe have missed something. We do the hands, we wash it 3 times up until there. And then we rinse out his mouth 3 times along with his nose, taking it out. And then we place these inside his nose just so that no water gets inside his nose. Then we wash his face 3 times. We wash his face 3 times. And we said from the beginning point of where this hair starts to grow until the chin. And then from end to end, in terms of width-wise, 3 times. Once we finish that, we wash the arm until the elbow, not just before it, but just after it. In al-marafiq, as Allah mentions in the Quran, we do that 3 times. Once we finish that, then we do the left hand as well, 3 times. Okay? And then afterwards, just as you would do the hair, okay, we do the hair along with the earlobes and inside, okay, like this, 3, just once, okay, just this one just once, as we all know. And then we'll do his right leg, just his right leg, okay, as well up until the ankle, of course, okay, until the ankle, okay, and then afterwards we do the left leg. We'll do the left leg. And as a point of benefit, brothers, if I am married and I have a wife and she dies, I am allowed to wash her. Okay? And if I die, she's allowed to wash me. Because she is halal for me when I'm alive, and she is halal for me when I'm dead. And I'm halal for her when she's alive, and same as when she is dead. And this, of course, we know because of Fatima radiallahu anha and Ali radiallahu anha. Of course, we know that this is that which the ulama have taken, that it is allowed for a wife to wash her husband, and her husband to wash her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, when you first wash both hands together, can you wash it separate as well? Like,
yeah, there's not just generally when you're washing hands. I just did it in order to show you.
Yeah.
But you can wash it together as long as you wash properly.
wash separate as well.
Yeah, you can wash it separate if you need. It's no like, obviously this is just as long as it's washed. As long as it's washed. So once we finish doing that and making wudu, so make sure that's clear as well, Ikhwani, that if someone is dead and she's a sister, then a random man can't just come, and that's why we're doing this as well. May Allah accept it from us, that we teach the people, okay? Because it's important. Many of us, maybe it's a sister that dies, she doesn't have any male relatives, for example, that she doesn't have a husband, sorry, okay, and she dies. And the sisters, they don't know how to wash the deceased. That's a musibah, that's a calamity. Because then who will come in position to wash? Maybe it could be a man. And it happens frequently. A man will come and just wash, and maybe they don't have respect, they don't have any deen, fear of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you don't know what can go behind closed doors. That's why it's important for them also to know, so that if she has a sister or a mother, of course it's something that's daunting to do, but it's better for them to do it than a random person coming to do it. Okay? If this is happening, and once this happened, Ikhwani, we finish washing, made wudu. And so now we're at the stage of making wudu. Once that's done, once again, Ikhwani, as you can see, I'm not looking inside or anything like that. Satr al-awra is very, very important and crucial for Muslims, dead or alive. Once that's finished, we will turn the brother over to his left side. We'll turn it over to his left side. What's the reason? In order to start washing his right side. So Salah needs to start with the yameen, needs to start with the right. So after you've made wudu, you've given them wudu, you turn them over to the right, to the left, so that you can wash the right side. Okay? And once again, you make sure that the person is covered. You make sure the person's awrah is covered. Say that again? No, first you turn them over to the right hand side in order to get them ready. You turn them over to the right hand to get them ready. But in terms of ghusl, some ulama, there's taqdeem and ta'khir. Some ulama do mention that you start with the head. Some mention you start with this. It's not something that's wajib in terms of that you're going to be causing a sin or getting a sin. You know which one you start with. But of course, you should try to stick to the sunnah. Okay? So once you turn them over to the right hand side, like I just told, like the brother just said, you can either start with the head or you can start washing with the right. Or you start just washing, you pour water over the head and you start washing. It's not a must, but that which was used was sidr. We all know what sidr here is, right? The sidr tree, exactly. So sidr. So it will be a thing where if one has the capability to have it, it's not a must. If you have sidr, you get the sidr and then you mix it in water. Okay? You mix the sidr in water, whether it's sidr leaves or sidr powder. You mix it in water. Once you mix that sidr in water, it turns into some sort of like, it will be like similar to soap or shower gel, that which we use today. And you use that to wash the deceased. If you don't have that, then you can use the likes of soap and other means that wash the deceased to take away the hikmah behind it. The wisdom is what? To take away the smell. To take away the smell. Yeah, this will be the first wash with the soap or the sidr or whatever means that you're using. After you've given them, after you made the water. And then once you do that, you make the sidr. So obviously, like I said, so we'll use soap. We'll use the soap. And then we'll use the soap in the head as well. And then we'll pour water to clean the head and the right hand side as well. And then with gloves, I would use my gloves and I'll go underneath that which is covering the deceased and wash in the armpits and on this side, of course, not touching the awrah, not touching the awrah and his back. Okay, and this side all the way until I get to the leg. Okay, so I've washed his whole right hand side. Okay, is that clear? I've washed his whole right hand side.
Before you start the wudu, you go like a sponge
Again?
in the private area.
Yeah, we said we're going to do that now. We're doing that now. First is wudu.
Okay.
But we said we don't touch the private area. We don't touch it. We still clean without touching.
Yes, do we need to have a
Yeah, of course. I think it's best if we do the questions after, and then after that, it's much easier. So we said obviously we've done the wudu, then we turn him over to his right hand side, then we washed his head. We apply soap or sidr, okay, and then we put the sidr or the soap. We wash everywhere, but not touching the private part. Okay, so you can still apply the soap or the sidr on his private part without touching. Okay, without touching. Of course, we're using gloves, and also, as I mentioned again, we don't show anything from his private area. We don't show anything from his private area. Once this is done, we turn it over. And once again, this is something that it's up to the person washing whether they want to wash up the sidr straight away on the right hand side. If not, you can leave it like that. You wash him with the sidr, as we mentioned, and then you put him back on his back and turn him over to the other side to wash the left side. Okay? And the same thing applies. You wash the left side with the sidr, with the soap. So we're using the soap, we're washing, okay, like this. I'm washing underneath. I'm going underneath, washing. Okay, and then afterwards, I can leave him again, put him on his back, like this, and then wash his body, not touching his private area, washing this part of his body. So we've washed every single part of his body at this stage. Okay? And then I can apply the same thing, like the brother mentioned about the sidr, washing his private area. We can wash the private area, but we don't touch it. And there's no need to ask how, because it's very, very possible. Okay? Everyone can do it. You wash the private area with the sidr or the soap or the means that is going to remove. Because some people, maybe they live in the badia, in the village, and maybe they don't have soap the way we have soap. So anything that they use from natural herbs to take off and cleanse the body from all impurities. And then from that stage, brothers, you either use a hose pipe or normal water to take away the sidr, or take away the soap, or whatever means you're using to take away that smell. So you use the water, you apply the water. Is that clear up until now? You don't need to repeat it, right? Good. So from there, with regards to a person that's come out of a fridge, sometimes you find that the bodies have been found, maybe it's a murder, what have you, they are protect us all. And with the Muslims, if they come out of the fridge, you find that their limbs are tight and stiff. So it's good for you to loosen the limbs with whatever means that you can use to loosen the limbs in order for the washing to be easier for you. Okay? In order for that process to be made easy for you. And then, you don't have to do it. Yeah. So let's say, for example, you have Carrefour, it's a specific thing. You can use that as well, okay? And of course, what's the benefit of Carrefour is that it strengthens the body, it gives it some sort of strength, and it's a means of helping for those that know that it can read up and research the benefits of Carrefour. It's very, very good for the body. Okay, so you can use and apply Carrefour to his body parts. Okay. And also, it's another thing that's important, when you're washing the deceased, try your utmost best as well not to harm them. So if they have certain parts that, they suffered injury when they were dying, or what have you, try and not touch that part or harm that part as well. Because that which harms the person alive also harms them in terms of you should give respect to that deceased person, brother or sister. That's also something that's very, very important. And then once you've applied the Carrefour, of course, usually the same thing as said, you apply the Carrefour in like a bowl, and then you mix it, and then from there you can use it across the body. Once again, not touching the private part. Once you've done that, you wash off the Carrefour with water as well. You wash the Carrefour with water. All of this is that the person enters their grave upon ahsan hal, that they enter the grave in the best of states in terms of smelling nice and happy. And also it's a means of when the people that are helping carrying the body as well, they don't get put off by this smell that usually, people that have died, the smell comes out of them. And this once again as well, showing the beauty of Islam, which is not done in any other religion with regards to the way they are washed. After this, we'll use. So at this stage, we've washed the deceased, we use Carrefour, washed it off as well once again. Okay, so now he's going to be soaking wet, correct? And this that is covering his aura will be wet as well. So we want to get a new one. Okay, in order to get a new one, once again, we still make sure that we cover his aura. So you get someone else, for example, to cover, and then as he is covering, I'll remove this, okay? And then I'll put it there, and then we'll have a new sheet or covering that will be over the deceased, so that this specific one will be taken away because it's wet. But look at the way the process has been done. We're not showing any part of the elders. That's something that's very crucial. I'm saying it so many times because we're very heedless with regards to this, unfortunately. Then after this, let's make it more practical. If we can get someone just to help me move the body, we'll move the body to the side and then we'll put the kafir, okay? That which we're going to wrap the actual body in. So if I can have someone, just two people, please help lift the body. Once again, Ikhwani, remember when you're carrying the deceased and what have you, respect the dead body. Okay, so you don't just carry it and just shove it, no, respect. You hold it and as if they are alive, respect them. Bismillah. And with regards to these, lifaf or kafan, whatever name you want to use for them, these are, of course, that which the deceased will be wrapped up in. The Prophet ﷺ advised that it should be an witr, an odd number, either 3, 5, or 7, not an even number. Okay, and this is from the Sunnah. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us so. It's not a must for us to always know the reasons behind it, trying to search into it and delve into the matters of why not black, why not pink one, why not this. The Prophet ﷺ told us that it should be a white sheet, okay, and it should be an odd number. The Prophet ﷺ knows that which we do not know, okay. So we line them out like this. So we use 3 because we use 3, inshallah. So this is 3 at the moment that we've got. So this is what either 3 or 5 or 7, like I said, one number. We place it down at the bottom. They have to be completely flattened out. And in case the person has died and they're suffering from some sort of injuries that will cause some sort of maybe excess bleeding or what have you, anything like that, you can place something at the bottom that will help when you're putting them, placing them in the grave, to protect them and to help them from any sort of excess damage that they occur with regards to you taking them from where they are until into the grave. Say that again? No, that one is not a number. It doesn't have to be a number, but just the main thing is the lifaf being a number. Usually, this is what's going to be used to wrap the seeds in terms of it should be white in color. We have the spin bags we're going to use, inshallah. So one will be under the legs, okay? One will be used under the legs. The other one under the thighs. And another one under the stomach. Under the chest. Then of course place the deceased in that position. And then under the head. Of course, with regards to the lifaf, the sheet that we're using, if it's going to be a fully grown man, it will be this size. Of course, if it's an infant, someone smaller, then it will be according to the size of the actual deceased. As for the women folk, the sisters, then you add a khamis and a dirham. Okay, that is something you add, extra garments you add in order to cover the awrah. if someone can help put the rubber back, I can get a volunteer. So basically, we're going to place the legs and the head. Bismillah. That's it. Thighs. At this stage, Khani, of course, the disease is there, it's been washed, will be 5. So 1 under the head, 1 is supposed to be under the chest, 1 is supposed to be under the stomach, 1 under the thighs, and then 1 under the legs. Okay, and they're usually white, similar kind of sheets, but just longer, rope sizes, or just a bit wider. So once that's finished, as that which of course we know, again we're saying it because it's from the blessings of Islam, that we should try our most best to do what? To make the ra'iha, the smell that comes out of the deceased, be a beautiful, pleasant scent. So which is from the Sunnah is that we put the atar, anything that you have a good smell, on the sab'at a'dha, the sujood, the 7 places that one uses to prostrate, to make sujood. Okay? So on top of his forehead, that's 1. Okay, 1 spot, that's the first one for the forehead. On the palms, okay? Goes on both, that's 2. Once again, when you're lifting the cloth, let's say his hands are inside, like just how you saw now, make sure you don't show the aura. And same for the female as well. But on top of the forehead is 1, 2. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, excessively, just so that it's understood. And then on the knees, okay, so there, this is what you make sujood, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the nose. So on the nose, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So on the knees, I'll literally go underneath and put on his knees. But I'll put on his knees underneath. Okay, on both knees, and then on his legs, okay, where he makes sujood. Is that clear, Juan? So once we've washed him, put the sheets on the bottom, where we're going to wrap him up in, put the 5 in different positions, then نطيب الميت. Okay, we put the atar on the deceased, on his limbs, where he makes sujood. And once again, for those that didn't hear, that it's a point of benefit to make the deceased smell nice. Okay, to make the deceased smell nice. Then we start covering the deceased from his right hand side. May Allah Azza wa Jalla make this beneficial reminder for all of us, you know, none of us here should be laughing, to be honest. But this, now we start covering from his right hand side. Okay? We start covering from his right. Of course, the clothes we can remove them if we know that no water has reached his nose. So there's no need for them to be there anymore. So we start covering his right hand side. Okay? Okay, I'm just remind as well. Of course, you're supposed to use this to tie. Okay, to tie underneath as well. But because it's bin bags, I don't actually tie the rubber with the bin bags. But usually you tie them in order to make it easy for you when you're carrying that to deceased. Okay, when you're carrying, and there's going to be ones as well that we're going to use to just tie it in the end as well. We'll see each other. So that will be ones that we're using to tie. Once again, you're not supposed to. For those watching, you're not supposed to use bin bags just to elaborate. It's just because you don't actually have the actual one. Bin bags is something that you're supposed to use.
Under the couple or under the
yeah, there's some that's going to be underneath as well. There's some underneath, but because we don't have enough, I just use these 4 points and You know what? Sorry, my mistake. My mistake.
بارك الله فيكم.
Sorry about that, Tony. So these will be that which will tie the brother, the deceased. There is also supposed to be another one on the top, a light one that is also going to help with regards to, like I said, in terms of any sort of injuries the person has occurred during death. So once we've covered the right hand side, there's a reason I'm leaving the face open, I'll just say it in a moment. Then we start. So we'll start like this, and then we'll use, it's better to do sheet by sheet, it is better, okay? So you're covering the person properly, in a perfect manner. So the reason why I've left the brother's face open is because, of course, for those that now have family members or friends that want to come and give salam, final salam to the deceased, then they can come, see the face, give salam, and have their final moment before we actually wrap up. So let's say now the brothers have come, the family members have come to actually see the deceased, and it is allowed to kiss the deceased as well. كما فعل أبو بكر الصديق رضي عنه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم when he entered upon his daughter Aisha رضي الله عنها, and he saw that he was there dead, lying, and then he covered, and then he kissed the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, قبله في جبهته, on his forehead, he kissed him. So of course kissing is allowed, okay? But in terms of now brothers may ask with regards to reading Fatiha, how can I read Fatiha? None of that has been related and it's authentic, but the Prophet ﷺ advised to do it, or it was done to any of the companions and what have you in terms of reading the Quran on the deceased. On the deceased, so one should stay away from all acts of innovation. So then afterwards, we'll cover the brother. And it's good for us to try and make a knot from that end, and also the end as well where his legs are. This is so that when you're placing the deceased in the grave, it's easier and he doesn't slip out of the actual cloth or anything of the sort. But these, of course, will be used to help lift. And finally, we have the table for the
coffin on the grave.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at this moment of time, we'll tie the knots. But before we lift them and take them to the actual place where they'll be put in his grave, which we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Almighty, to give us all Christmas party. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give us all a good ending and enable us to be from those that has a good ending when we meet our Lord Jalla Jalaluhu, Allah being pleased with us. So what happens next? Obviously, let's say we're in the masjid, Okay? If we're in a masjid now, before they get taken to the grave, before the deceased get taken to the grave, what's next is to pray upon the deceased. Okay? We pray upon the deceased. So if it's a man, okay, or young boy and what have you, then you stand where his head is. That's from the Sunnah. The Sunnah is you stand where his head is positioned. Okay? If it's a sister, of course, let's say this is the Qibla and everyone's behind me. Okay? So imagine that this is the Qibla and I'm the Imam and everyone is behind me. I'll stand here if it's a male, okay, and I'll do my salah, which we're going to explain, salah of janazah. If it's a female, I'll stand in the middle. One will ask why, what's the hikmah, what's the reason? Difference of opinion for the ulama, they say one of the reasons is that I act as a barrier of covering her and her awrah from the ma'mumeen, from those that are praying behind me. Look at the message inside. Even when the sister is deceased, we should still protect her awrah and cover her. So this is from the reason they give. Going into the rulings of praying salat al-janazah, it is 4 takbirat, that which is most authentic. Some ulama say that you can bring more and what have you. We're not going to get into the matters of differences of opinion. We're going to mention that which is authentic. 4 takbirat. The first one you say Allahu Akbar. And the differences of opinion with regards to raising the hands or not raising the hands. And there's 2 opinions. One says you should raise the hand in the first and then not the rest. The other opinion is you raise the hands all 4 times. The other opinion is you just raise your hands once and that's it. It depends what opinion you take. They're all authentic and all have proof. Okay? But we say Allahu Akbar and then we're going to do it as well. So we can teach those that don't know. And I'll hold the book and read the dua in English so that you can all learn if you don't know. And inshallah the brothers should put it in the description. So those that are watching can memorize the dua. Many people don't know what to say when it comes to actually praying the salat al-janazah. And it's very important because it's a time when you're asking Allah to forgive the deceased. Okay, so you say Allahu Akbar the first time and you read Fatiha. And there is no salat al-istiftah. Istiftah, there's no istiftah. Meaning you don't say Allahu Akbar subhanallah. You don't do that. You just say Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. So that's the Fatiha. You just read normal Fatiha. If the Imam, so we're going to discuss it in detail because questions may arise and it's easy just to discuss now. If the Imam takes longer in Fatiha, then it is allowed for those that are praying behind to read another surah. It is allowed for those that are praying behind him to read another surah if he takes longer in the first rak'ah. The second takbir, okay, should be Allahu Akbar. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Normal salutations upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you want to go longer, there's different ways of sending salutations. That which is authentic, there is no specific one you should do. Okay, just whichever one you've memorized or it's easier for you, you should do. As for the next part, and the reason I'm holding the book once again is so that I can elaborate in terms of the dua, how you should say it, and what should be done, and how you should say it as well. Then you say Allahu Akbar, and you read Allahumma khfid lihayyina. I'm going to do it very slowly, and then I'm going to say it in English as well, the meaning. When you say Allahu Akbar the third time, so once again, you do Allahu Akbar, we read Fatiha. Second time, Allahu Akbar, you send salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the third takbir is the dua, supplication. So we say, Allahumma khfil lihayyina. Oh Allah, forgive. You know, let me read in Arabic and then English. Allahumma khfil lihayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina. Okay? Wa ghaibina. Okay? Allahumma khfil lihayyina wa mayyitina. Okay? Allahumma khfil lihayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirana wa kabirina. Okay, وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا عفوا وأنثانا اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان. This is the dua, the supplication that you read and is reported in Tirmidhi, which means, Oh Allah, forgive amongst us those who are alive and those who are dead, those who are present and those who are absent, those who are young and those who are old, those who are male and those who are female. O Allah, whomsoever you keep alive amongst us, keep him or her alive upon Islam. And whom you cause to die, let him or her die upon Iman. So this dua you read for the deceased. Question now, if it's a child, the dua that's been reported, Allahumma ja'alhu, okay? Or Allahumma ja'alha. So if it's a male, Allahumma ja'alhu. Or male, dhakar. If it's a female, then Allahumma ja'alha lana faratan wa salafan wa ajran. Oh Allah, make him or her for us a righteous deed which has gone before us, a recompense gone ahead, a treasure and a reward. And this hadith is a Muslim. And then the last dua, which is a longer one, Allahumma ij'alhu, Allahumma ighfir lahu, warhamhu, wa'afihi, wa'afu anhu, wa akrim nuzulahu, wa wassi' mudkhalahu, واغسل له بالماء الثلج والبرد ونقه من الخطايا كما نقيت الثوب الأبيض من الدنس وأبدله دارا خيرا من داره وأهلا خيرا من أهله وزوجا خيرا من زوجه وأدخله الجنة وأدخله الجنة واغفر له من عذاب القبر وعذاب النار. And this dua is reported in Muslim. Oh Allah, forgive him, bestow mercy upon him, pardon him, accord him with a noble provision, and make his grave spacious. Wash him with water, snow and hail. Purify him from sins, as you have purified the white garment from decaying and coming back. Give him a better family in exchange of his present one, and a better spouse in place of his present wife. Admit him to Jannah and protect him from the trial in the grave and punishment in the hell and the hereafter. After hearing this supplication, Abu Abdurrahman, the companion, Ibn Malik said, I wished that it had been me dead in that position when the Prophet ﷺ read this dua. And this hadith is reported in Muslim. Now from this dua, if it's a sister, then instead of saying Allahumma ighfir lahu warhamhu, of course we know Allahumma ighfir laha warhamhu. If it's more than one person, more than two people, Allahumma ighfir lahu warhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu wa akrim nuzulahu until the end of the dua. So it all depends on whom has died. Okay. Now with regards to what should be done with regards to, let's say it's more than one person, we mentioned if it's, let's say for example we have a brother here, then we're going to have a sister there. If it's a brother, we stand here. We mentioned onto the head. If it's a sister, can I get a volunteer just to line up? Just like that. So if it is a sister and a brother, then we position the sister that the imam is literally in the middle part and at the same time on the head of the brother. Is that clear? If it's more than one, janazah that will pray. If it's many of them, then of course sometimes, as we've seen in many places where they pray of janazah, they pray more than one if they can't position all of them and it doesn't fit. So it just all depends on the circumstances. In terms of the position, the brother, the imam stands in front of the head. As for the sister, the imam stands in the middle. Okay? Is that clear, brother? A question, maybe someone asked as well, so we just say now, if you haven't prayed the Salatul Janazah in the masjid, for example, and you didn't catch the Salah in the masjid, is it allowed to pray the maqbara? Yes, it's allowed as long as you don't pray the actual part, you pray somewhere else if you can. If If you can pray somewhere else, you can pray somewhere else. But as long as you don't take it, the Prophet used to say, Sadd al-Bari'ah, to stop all acts of innovation that could lead to shirk and what have you. It's best to pray Salat al-Janazah away from the actual graveyard. It's better to. Okay? So that's for the Salat al-Janazah. Praying Salat al-Janazah, and of course that comes first. What's the reward? One may ask, what is the reward? And of course we mentioned, I think just in case you didn't, I think one of the brothers mentioned, the person should be upon the state of wudu that's giving the actual ghusl. Okay, meaning that's actually doing the washing. They should be in a state of purity. And the reward for actually praying Salat al-Janazah, does anybody know? Barakallahu fikum. The Prophet told the companions, يعني من صلى وراء الميت فله قيراط ومن تابع الميت إلى الجنازة فله قيراطان. Meaning the one that prays the prayer behind the person that is dead, if you pray Salat al-Janazah, you have qirat. I'm going to tell you what it means. And if you follow the deceased until the graveyard and you also attend the actual burial ceremony, the janazah bit, then you have qiratan. They asked the companion, "Man qirat?" Did you see this mountain? And he pointed to Jabal Uhud. And he said that this mountain Uhud is the reward. It being filled, many with dhahab. It has been filled with gold, meaning that is the reward that one will get for praying the Salat al-Janazah. So then let's say we finished praying Salat al-Janazah and we're now taking the deceased to the actual graveyard. Okay? But this is also another stage of them, what we should do. We should know what to do when we have washed. So of course we know that I think it's best for us to, with regards to the positioning and how we do, of course, just trying to kind of make, if you can kind of try and picture it, because we don't have an actual graveyard here or anything, but the way it should be, can anyone explain it to me? How do you place a Muslim inside the graveyard?
In the right side.
How do you place it? How is the grave positioned? Not where the body, I'm talking about the grave. How is the grave like? Exactly, that's what I'm looking for. It's not a normal grave, okay? And in terms of that, what should be done is that there should be, like for example, a space and then a position that goes in. Who can tell me the reason? That's one of the reasons. So of course, once again, protecting the deceased to stop the grave from caving in. So you have a space that will be here. So we're going to place the deceased on his right hand side, okay, meaning on his left, but on his right hand side, facing the Qibla. And the way you do it is that his face and what should be from the Sunnah. So if someone can help me, the brother, we're going to lift and put it to the side, and then I need more than 4 or 5 volunteers. Please, come on. You're careful, yeah? Yeah, this one up. So let's pick up the body, place the body there. And we can use this, just once again, sorry, before we start, we can use, obviously, let's say we have something underneath, which usually happens, like a bed or something that carries the deceased. That can be used, and this is for the reason why these come in handy in terms of actually placing them underneath. That when we're placing that in and positioning the body inside the grave, it makes it easier for the person doing it. Also, another thing, Ikhwani, some of the ulama they mentioned, they talk about with regards to what should we do and is it allowed, let's say we're walking towards the graveyard, in terms of standing in front, there is no harm. Some ulama say that we shouldn't, but there is no harm standing in front. But they say in terms of respect-wise, you should stand behind the actual deceased and follow them into the actual place where they're going to go. The reason I've done that just to show you Now, let's say in terms of the actual graveyard, let's say this is the graveyard, 6 foot under. Okay, there will be either one person or two people inside that will be there ready to receive the dead body. Okay, so if you guys can help me basically pick up the body and then we'll see the image on you.
Just start from here.
Yeah. But I want you guys now to position him in the way where we're going to make him face the Qibla. So let's say this is the actual Qibla. Yeah, please. And go to the back side and give it into him like this. And what, sorry, just forgot to mention, if this is the graveyard, from the Sunnah that one should say is, they should say Bismillah. You can tell me, Bismillah, and then ala sunnati Rasulillah wa ala millah. So that's authentic. And we say Bismillah ala sunnati Rasulillah. Bismillah ala sunnati Rasulillah when you're receiving the deceased inside the actual grave. That's from the Sunnah that you should say. Bismillah. And then you place him on his right hand side. And then from this moment on, Ikhwani, is when, of course, just imagine it that he's actually in that position and the lahd is there. Okay. So from now, we'll start to loosen the knots that we tied, because there's no need for them to be loose, to be tightened inside the actual grave, but we did it in order to help carry the grave inside, so we'll loosen it. We can loosen that. And then from this stage, Ikhwani, when we placed him like this, okay, and he's inside, from this moment, of course, we don't have the actual props. So this will be something similar to the lahd, what they call the lahd, where we'll place, let's say he's inside, he's in that corner. Then we'll start placing these like this, in a diagonal position. Is that clear, everyone? It has to be in that position. Reason being is that when we start putting the rocks and then the cement and then we start putting the soil and stuff, it doesn't actually enter where the deceased is. Okay? Just imagine these as the actual lahd as well. Not very difficult to do so. Huh? He basically, yeah. In a way, there's like two types. Yeah, that is also can be used as well, but the way you're placing him, so once again, where's his head, Ikhwani? Where's his head? Facing the Qibla. It's not allowed for a Muslim to be faced away from the Qibla. Because the Qibla is for the Muslim. You should not place a Muslim away from the Qibla. Or rather, he has to be facing towards the Qibla. That's very, very important and crucial. So it's better to note down that he has to be facing towards the Qibla. And this is from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He has to be facing towards the Qibla. And then afterwards, we put the lahd there. So let's say that's all done now. At this moment now, we'll get, for example, rocks. Okay? We'll get rocks to make sure it's covered and cover it as well, start throwing them down so the lahd doesn't move as well. It depends where you are. People use different things. Some countries they use like some sort of cement in the little corners of the lahd as well to make sure it's firm and it doesn't move. Some of them they don't, they just put the soil on top. So that's not important really in terms of, it's not from the Sunnah, it's just in terms of if you can, it's better to. If you don't have, then it's not a problem. Just in order to keep that diagonal lahd or wood or whatever you may use to keep it intact so that the body is not affected with that which is put on top. Once again, as a mercy, it's not in Islam where you put them inside the grave and then you just place all the soil on top and then the body gets crushed. Once again, Islam is a religion of mercy.
Islam is a religion of mercy. Once again, Islam is a religion of mercy. This in itself is an example that Islam is a religion of mercy, where the body is gone. They're no longer in this dunya. Okay, they're no longer with us. But rather, at this moment of time, what we're doing, we're still respecting the deceased that has gone by putting the lahad and putting everything there in order to conceal and to protect and cover the body. In order for us to protect and cover the body. We mentioned that we undo these in order for them, so that it's not, the body is not, tied up, a bit loose. Place them there, and then afterwards we start, of course, getting the soil and putting it all over on top. And it's from the Sunnah as well, to make sure that you try your best to do it, so to get a reward, because there is a reward in doing that, covering the deceased and putting soil. But what's from ihtiram, from the means of being respectful to the family of the deceased, it's best to let them start and begin with, putting the soil and what have you. Then afterwards, those that are also there, present, then they can take part in burying the deceased. You okay?
You said it's okay.
I don't think it's covering for a long time, long period of time. Sorry.
No, you're right. I actually don't want to suffocate. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Not for his face don't come.
So after this is done, brothers, what you do next is, of course, as well, as the Prophet ﷺ says, إذا وضعتم موتاكم في القبور فقولوا بسم الله وعلى ملة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We mentioned that as well. When we place him there, we carry on, continuously saying this specific statement, that which the Prophet advises us to do so. Now, one thing that I did want to mention is, and this will be the end point of this specific part, is that when it comes to burying the deceased, then 3 times are prohibited. And Prophet told us to not bury the deceased in 3 times. Okay, 3 different times during the day. The first time is طلوع الشمس, okay, sunrise. Okay, when the sun is rising, that's a prohibited time to carry out burying the deceased. Prophet advised us and warned us against it. Second time is Salat al-Dhuhr. When it's the Salat al-Dhuhr exactly and the sun is at its peakest stage, it's also a time that's prohibited in burying the deceased. And the third time is Ghurub al-Shams, when it's Maghrib. So these 3 times, parts of the days, are the times where we should refrain from burying the deceased. As for the time when everything has been put on top, the deceased is there, then we know that from the means, and this is something that we're going to enter into the second part in terms of the ahkam and the rulings of actually visiting the grave, is that it depends. It's not wajib, it's not a must, but from you showing respect to the deceased is that you take off that which you're wearing. In terms of your shoes and stuff, you take it off. If you're, as I've said one time, saw someone walking and he says, "Ikhla'u al-Qasntin," take off that which you're wearing in terms of your shoes. And it's a sign of respect that if you're walking through the graveyard, through other graves, then you should not be wearing something on your feet. But we're not saying it's right, we're saying it is better. Okay, it's better. The body now is completely covered with everything. One thing that we should bear in mind is that at this time, when it's completely covered, now is the time when it comes into effect with regards to how much now do you care about your deceased? That's the question now you ask yourself, how much do you care about your deceased? If you say that they're your family member or your friends or your parents and what have you, that's when you should try your utmost best to help them in refraining from any sort of innovation. I leaving flowers on top of the grave, sitting on top of the grave, putting some people they put, maybe the person was known to be a biker, was known to be an engineer, whatever it means when you put something there, and you're trying to show respect. This is all of these actions and any other than them won't benefit the deceased. They don't need anything from you physically. All they need is you to make dua for them. Okay? You leaving, I don't even know what they use now, but generally whatever they use in terms of props, flowers, and anything else, for people in terms of, in Khaliji countries, they put shimars. All of these stuff are all innovations. All innovations. That is not going to help the deceased, but rather it is going to bring about harm to the one that has done. So you make dua for them. As the Prophet said, at this moment of time, it says, إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدُكُمْ الْجَنَازَةَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فَادْعُوا لِأَخِيكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ الْآنَ يُسْأَلُ. As the Prophet says, that when it comes to you being at this moment of state, and you're there, you're alive, and you're there witnessing the burial, make dua for the deceased. Why? Because at this moment of time, they're being questioned. At this moment of time, others, they're being questioned. They're being questioned. That's when they're going to need your dua the most. Okay? In terms of if someone has come, and maybe there's someone that has come to try and remind the brothers, there is no problem in someone there reminding the people about death and what have you. Something small and short, not too long, not too heavy on the people. As long as it's to the point, there's nothing wrong with that as well. And also at this moment of time as well, it's funny, I think that I want to bear in mind, we're going to touch on it further, inshallah. But something that's very, very crucial and important with regards to the women folk visiting the graves and being there present when we're burying the deceased. So that's a very important topic. Different ulama have different statements, but the main thing is, as some people say it's allowed, for those that take the opinion that is allowed, there should be no free mixing. The time when the burial is happening, just like there should be no free mixing outside. Sometimes we lose ourselves in terms of that which we need to do, in terms of our religion. We don't remain steadfast. When the deceased is being buried, there is no need to free mix. Just like there is no need to free mix, and one shouldn't do it outside of the janazah, outside of this specific state and state, this specific state. So one should bear that in mind as well. Sometimes you go to the burial and you see sisters there and brothers there all together. And it's like, what's going on? Where's the fear of Allah Azza wa Jalla? And akhwati fil Islam. One should bear that in mind as well. When you're there and the person is being buried, respect the deceased. And have fear of Allah the Almighty. Have fear of Allah the Almighty. From the means of that which will benefit, 21 times now. You want to pause for that and then we continue afterwards? Yeah? Does everyone, okay, we'll do that inshallah. We'll pause and then we'll carry on inshallah after. So in terms of this stage, just before we finish, this would be the complete kind of way in terms of burying the deceased, putting the kafan on the deceased, and then entering them into the grave. So in terms of the brother now, that's what one should do. And like I said, in terms of the orders and stuff, as long as one tries to take the sunnah, that's the main thing.
Inshallah, as the Sheikh mentioned, we'll continue after the Asr prayer. Once the course is finished, the Sheikh said there's not too much long left. Once we complete, inshallah, everyone's welcome upstairs. We've got some food for everybody. So take the food and then go after that, inshallah. So after the Asr prayer, we'll continue the last section. Once it's finished, inshallah, upstairs for food, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.